Are we in a housing bubble? Yes or no? And if yes, when is it going to burst? These are the questions that people want to know. Today I have Bret Ceren, a longtime friend, client, and business partner.
Yep.
He came by to really answer these questions, dive into the numbers, and be able to give talking tools and scripts and thoughts that y'all can use when these questions are being asked of you from your clients. Bret, welcome.
Thank you. It's a true pleasure, Kelly. Thank you so much.
Of course. So I know you, and I know you are a numbers guy. Like, this is what you eat and breathe.
That's
it's so fun to talk with you because you're always like spinning stuff, and I'm like, what? I love it. So let's just kind of dive in.
Sure.
In looking at the September numbers, break it down.
Okay.
What do we need to know?
So the first thing is I would say, I know it feels like we're in a housing bubble, right? It's the question I get. It's the question you get. I'm sure it's a lot of questions that everybody else is getting. And it really feels like it, but I would tell you we're not. It feels like it, but we're not. And there's a lot of really good reasons for that. As far as September numbers, we're actually starting to see some really interesting things as well that we're going to share with everybody. But I can tell you, we're not in a housing bubble, and our market, especially here in the greater Phoenix, Scottsdale area, is very strong, and it's mirroring a lot of things in a lot of other markets nationally. So no, which is a short answer.
Okay, I like it. Okay, we started out great.
Right.
No, all right, so let's dive deep.
Okay, so there's a couple things. Usually our market has had a very specific pattern that it follows as far as sales and closings, right? It's the lowest in January because December sales would be the lowest, makes sense, right? And then it rises up, typically peaking in May, and then it begins a gentle slope down through the rest of the year, right? Last year with the pandemic broke everything.
Right.
So that pattern no longer exists, or at least it didn't exist last year. Okay, so that's something to know.
Last year, 2020.
Right.
But now we're September 2021, so we almost have a year now.
Yes, that's true. And we looked like we were starting to follow the same pattern again with more sales though.
Okay.
So the same thing, but more sales than we've really ever had. And it is true, you know, maybe you'd see headlines like 100% more homes or twice as many homes available now as earlier this year, which is true. However, the point is that it's we're still at the same point we were at this same time last year, and in 2019, just 2 years ago, we're still half of what we were at then. And I don't know about you, but nobody was telling me that the fall of 2019 was a buyer's market, right?
Right. So when you say we're half of what we were then, are we talking inventory, or are we talking sales?
No, that's a good point. So active inventory, so if somebody were to go on the MLS, the number of homes that they could find is half of what it was 2 years ago and the same amount it was a year ago.
So less inventory, but the same or more sales?
Correct. Well, more sales.
More sales.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is that...
So as soon as it comes on the market, it's gone. Like, it's just...
That's still happening.
Right?
Yeah, it's not as bad as it was earlier this year, but well-positioned homes, well-marketed, are still experiencing multiple offers. You know, you see about price reductions, you see about days on market extending, or even cancellations and expireds. But I can tell you, for our buyers, we're still encountering a lot of competition on the homes, and for our sellers, done well, they're still doing very well as well too. So, but as far as the active sales, now this is, I guess, the root of your question originally. For the sales themselves, what we are seeing, September, we had fewer new homes on market, and we had fewer actual homes go under contract, but we had more sales in September than we did in August, like as far as actual closings, which does not happen. If we talk about our pattern, right, the gentle slope did not happen for September of this year like it historically does, which is a kind of it's a big deal. I mean, it suggests we're breaking the trend again.
And so what does that really mean when you're breaking the trend? Like, so what are you forecasting based on just this uniqueness of September?
Sure. Now, it's early signs, so we'll see exactly how it continues to pan out. But I'm not alone. Even the senior economist for Realtor.com expects a busy fall with homes that would typically be put on the market in the spring. People are putting them on the market earlier. Okay. So last year, well, typically our market, again, Phoenix and Scottsdale, will have 25% of their closings in a year in the final quarter, which may make sense, right? But our business typically is about a third in the fall or in the fourth quarter, And last year we did 55%.
Yeah.
So we were really backloaded last year, and I'm expecting to still be busy this fall as well too. We're still getting a lot of interest, a lot of questions from buyers and sellers, so we're not taking the foot off the gas by any means.
Okay. So right now I hear a lot of real estate agents talk about sellers not being realistic when they go to sell. How do you combat that?
Sure.
And obviously the housing bubble question comes up, and
Right.
it's part of what's in their mind and maybe what's leading to this unrealistic, they don't want to miss out.
Right.
Kind of walk me through that just from your seat.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because it's actually where we're seeing the price reductions, okay, is where maybe a seller overshoots the trajectory that the buyers are on, right? And so
Right.
they're still going to sell their house for more than they would have earlier this year or last year or certainly over 2 years ago, but where they think the buyers are going to be versus where they actually are, that's where the mismatch comes up, right? And so we're also seeing it through iBuyers who have purchased homes and set them high to sell them later in the year, but they decide they want to liquidate it now, so they bring the price down. So it's important to look at where are the price reductions actually occurring, where are the sales actually occurring at, and if you want to be a seller to participate and really win, because homes are still like produce, right? The longer they sit, the worse off they are.
Yeah.
So you still want to price to market where the market's at right now, or maybe just above, in order to do the best you can.
So what do you think with regard to fourth quarter? You said it's going to be busy, you're preparing, you're
Right.
seeing it, you're feeling it, but market-wise, Phoenix Metro, you feel like that's going to be consistent. Is there a particular price point? You know, is that anything under $1 million, under $750, under $500?
Right.
Like, kind of walk me through that.
Yeah, good point. So for months, see, our new entry point into the price point of our market is now the $300,000 to $500,000 price point for single family homes, right? And for months, we've been seeing that number tick upwards, right? The lowest was from the third week of February through the third week of March, rather, and it's been gradually climbing since then. But for the first time, over the past 30 days, that available home number for that price range, $300,000 to $500,000, has actually fallen by 4%. So the next one, $500,000 to $700,000, is still increasing. $700,000 to $1 million is still increasing, but that's probably an early sign that we're going to see renewed activity through the fall. So, and here's another reason why I believe that too, is, you know, it's still kind of the second year of the pandemic, right? A lot of places still really locked down, and our weather is now gorgeous. And I think our snowbird season is probably going to be busier than it's ever been, especially with the treatments and things that are available. People are less concerned. They're coming here for a nice weather. I think we're going to see kind of a banner snowbird season, not just in the fourth quarter of this year, but going through the first quarter of next year.
And don't forget, the conforming loan limits are going up, which is going to be
That's going to fuel it too.
Huge, especially in that, $600,000 price point.
Right.
So for everybody that maybe hasn't heard, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have announced the new conforming loan limit will be $625,000. Currently it's $548,250, so this is a big jump.
Yeah, 14%. That's huge.
Right?
So that's going to fuel a lot of things, and rates are still good too. So you get the best of both worlds: purchasing power and loan limits.
Yeah, absolutely. So that puts you at about a $644 purchase price with 3% down, still being able to use a conforming loan limit.
Right.
So, like, this is big stuff.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like you're as excited as I am. Like, I need some excitement from you. Okay, all right. Okay, so I know you brought me some charts. Like, what else do we need to know?
Okay, so this is also what's really big about what's going on, especially in our market. Okay, so we talked briefly about how September compared with August, but also September compared with prior Septembers, okay? And that's one of the key things. So we've got three main categories, right? New listings, that's people who put their homes on the market, right? The sellers who want to sell. Then we have the sales, or those that actually go under contract, okay? So buyer and seller have agreed on terms, but we're not yet closed, right? And then actual closings. It's important to track all three to know the health of the market. And so with the exception of last year, this is like borderline crazy, just so you know. So for new listings, okay, going back from 2017 to 2019, we are anywhere for September of this year, anywhere from 11% to 16% higher than we were for the same month in those prior years. Okay, so if you think back to how the markets were at that point, and to say more people are putting their homes on the market at big numbers, 11 to 16%, that's a huge jump.
That's huge, because I think everybody in our market and across the nation is talking about no inventory.
Right.
So it kind of, that doesn't make sense.
Right. There is inventory. It just moves quickly.
Right. So buyer demand.
Yes, exactly, which is the key thing. And then, so let's talk about the sales though, right? So if people are putting their homes on the market, but they're not selling, then inventory grows and it stagnates, right? And so then we come down a little bit. But this number is actually shocking. So it's anywhere from 28% to 40% higher on our actual sales in September of this year versus September 2019 through 2017.
Wow.
So like, I mean, how do you even quantify that? That's just a huge number increase.
Huge.
And then actual closings is anywhere from 26% to 34%. So again, you know, you go add an extra sale or two on for every 4 to 5. That's big,
right?
You know, with the actual closings.
Yeah. So what do you think is driving buyer demand? Because obviously that's what this is at the end of the day.
Yep. And that's one of the key differences between when we did actually have a bubble and right now, right? Because, you know, the buying activity is what people feel like is the most similar, and but the buyers are different now.
Oh yeah.
So first and foremost, primary owner occupants, right? Mm-hmm. The speculation is not there.
Right.
Very few, even secondary homes or vacation homes, things of that nature. It's primarily your primary residence, right? And so that's a big difference first, because people they're living in these houses, not buying them to flip them.
Right.
Yeah. Secondly, it's just more actual buyers. So the two largest generations in the history of our country, boomers and millennials, fighting over the front end of the market, the smaller houses, right? Boomers, many are aging in place in big homes, but many of them are downsizing. And so they're going after that front end of the market. Millennials are entering the market, and they're going after the smaller homes as well because they're the lower priced homes.
Right.
And so that pressure on the front end, two largest generations in history, both fighting over the front end, is what's causing a lot of that demand. And then we're 5.5 million homes short nationally from over a decade of underbuilding since the recession. So there's less supply. Builders are trying now, but there's less supply and there's more legitimate demand, and that's really what's fueling most of this. That's nationally.
Right.
Arizona, of course, we've got weather, we've got a great business environment. You know, a lot of businesses are moving here, and so on top of all of our other things, education and the other things that have made us great historically. So that only accentuates how we're doing versus the rest of the nation, but those are national demographic forces that are fueling a lot of this.
And I think too, just to kind of piggyback on that, the lending component is so different now than it was back in that kind of 2003 to 6, 7, and 8 range, you know, especially up until about 2007. You know, so back then we had speculative buyers doing zero down with exotic mortgages and all this kind of stuff. Today, we have people actually putting money down. Obviously, the lending process is much more, shall we say, thoughtful. Thoughtful, that's a good word, thoughtful, right?
There's more questions being
asked.
There's
just a few more questions, right? And programs are just not what they were back then. So I think when you combine all of this, it really does help to give us the answer that this is not a housing bubble. And I talk to so many buyers too that they're just, you know, oh, I'm gonna wait until it bursts. I'm like, okay, let's talk about these facts. Let's really break it down. And so I think from a lending perspective, together with the real estate community, it is up to us to give people the straight scoop based on this community. We can't talk about, you know, some other state, but here we can, and we do see things are so different today. So if somebody is thinking about waiting, you know, there's a cost of waiting.
Yes.
Right?
Right. Well, and even, you know, talking about waiting even beyond the cost, say a bubble does pop, right? Well, that doesn't mean that the buyer's circumstance is still going to be the same in that then at that time as it is now, and so their ability to qualify may be different then as well too. There's so much that's unknown with that, but what we do know is that there's a cost of waiting, and it's probably not the best idea right now for that. Now, you tell me though, isn't there a metric of lender willingness to make loans, and it's different now than it was back before, right? So
there is a lender metric, absolutely. I mean, back then, anything went. You know, you could just fog a mirror and you're like, hey, get a loan. You know, it's just not that way today. But I will say that the lending community wants to lend. We just have to lend within the guidelines. And, you know, it's not like anything goes. So the process is much more dialed in, but it's also we, and you know this,
right.
we're really focused on what the buyer's wants and needs are,
sure.
you know, and it's not just cookie cutter.
No.
And I think that sometimes lending gets that bad rap
right.
of it just, oh, you know, 30-year fixed rate, that's what we saw. Well, no, not necessarily.
No,
so
there's a lot of products out
understanding, you know, what is going on in a person's particular scenario, their hopes, their dreams, their future goals, their current reality, right? And then building financing strategies around that is really the conversation of today.
Right.
And I think it helps. I think it helps in the education part of what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So is there a housing bubble, Brett?
No.
Okay.
At least not for the reasons we had it before, and not for reasons that anybody's paying attention to right now. So it's a very strong market.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
All right.